The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 regular City Council meeting of April 8th, 2026. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Core. Councilmember Arias.
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Weir. Councilmember Smith.
I am here.
Councilmember Coman.
Here.
And Councilmember Bashir Tosh.
Here.
Thank you. Welcome to all of you. In keeping with the Council's resolution, public statements are received at different times depending on the item. I'll call on the City Clerk to call for public statements at the appropriate time. If you wish to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and place it in the tray next to the speaker's podium. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on today's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda public statements. If you're here to speak on an item not listed on the meeting agenda, you'll be called first to speak. Statements are given a 2-minute time limit per speaker, 20 minutes total for all non-agenda item public statements. If you're here to speak on an item listed on the agenda, I'll call for you at the appropriate time. If public statements become disruptive and I have to clear the chambers to regain order of the meeting, you'll be called in one at a time to provide your public statement when your item is called. Everyone in attendance is expected to adhere to the rules of decorum established by resolution of the City Council. Failure to abide by the city's rules of decorum, including any disruptive behavior that interferes with our ability to have an orderly and efficient meeting, prevents the City Council from conducting the business of the city. Consider this a first warning to everyone in attendance that conduct that disrupts the meeting may result in expulsion and or the chambers being cleared. Behavior that disrupts the meeting includes repetitive statements, shouting, hate speech, interrupting staff or presenters during the meeting, speaking out of turn, outbursts from the audience, and surpassing the 2-minute time limit. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items not listed on the agenda?
Mayor Go, we've received 2 speaker cards regarding items not listed on today's agenda. The first public speaker is Christina Rollins.
Thank you. Ms. Rollins? Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Rollins, and I am here to address a serious public health concern involving kratom and its potent compound 7-hydroxytragynine, also known as 7-OH. In October 2025, the California Department of Public Health issued a statewide warning about these products. Shortly after, the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control began visiting licensed retailers to educate them on the risks and enforce compliance. Since then, thousands of locations have been visited and millions of dollars worth of kratom and 7-OH products have been seized. In March 2026, Governor Newsom made it clear that products containing kratom or 7-OH are illegal to manufacture or sell in the state. Retailers were also formally notified in January that selling these products both in-store and online is unlawful under California Health and Safety Code 110555. Despite this, these products are still being sold in our community, often openly in smoke shops or more discreetly behind the counter or hidden away in a back room. I can personally attest to this and the negative side effects associated with these products, and I'm willing to provide additional details privately if needed. I urge you to take action, follow up on prior notices, and enforce the law to remove these dangerous substances from our local businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rollins. Next speaker, please.
Charles Linenbrink.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Charles Linenbrink. 4 years ago, my wife was involved in a felony hit and run vehicle versus pedestrian. She was crossing the street in front of our house, and a bunch of young men were drag racing down our street, hit her. The police came out, took her statements, found the vehicle involved, and within a week closed the case out with no further investigation. We have had no resolve to this issue. To this day, we have a group in the neighborhood on small motorcycles. I've heard them referred to as pit bikes or fat cats with the small balloon tires. No headlights, no license plates. These are not street legal. Racing up and down the street doing 40 to 45 miles an hour. I've repeatedly called the police department with zero response. I've asked for not only response, but officer contact. I have got nothing. Now, this Friday, April 10th, my property tax is due. I've been paying property tax with zero response from police or anything. If I'm going to pay my property tax, I expect some service. And if I don't get service, I would like a refund on my property tax. I've gone through the city taxation department. I've gone through the assessors, county assessor's office. I just keep getting the runaround on all of it.
Thank you for speaking. Mr. City Manager, do you think we can have somebody follow up on this?
Absolutely,
please?
Mayor. We'll
yes,
follow up.
And we have your contact information. Thank you for sharing. Madam Clerk, do we have any other speakers for this section?
Mayor Go, that was our final speaker for non-agenda items. We have not received any speaker cards for agenda item public statements.
Right, next item, please.
Appointments item 3A, one appointment at large to the Historic Preservation Commission set to expire on March 31st, 2029 due to the term expiration of Michael McCoy on March 31st, 2026. Two applications for appointment were received from Erica Kimmel and Mike McCoy.
Thank you. I'd like to clarify the voting process for you. Council will vote electronically, and the city clerk will announce the results. Based on these results, the council will then make the appropriate motion regarding the appointment.
Mayor Go, Mike McCoy is the apparent winner with a total of 3 votes, and with Councilmember Kaur, Gonzalez, and Weir absent, and Councilmember Bashir Tosh abstaining.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, would you make the motion, please?
I would like to appoint Michael McCoy make a motion to appoint Michael McCoy to the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Councilmembers Kaur, Gonzalez, and Weir absent.
Thank you. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Appointments item 3B. 2 appointments to the Public Safety Vital City Services Measure Citizens Oversight Committee. Ward 1 set to expire December 16, 2026, and Ward 2 set to expire December 20, 2028. Vacancies. Applications for appointment were received from Hovik Badurian, Tyler Klutz, Jesse Dhaliwal, Johnny Escobedo, Noe Garcia, Michael King, Jenny Curdy, Tihan Malik, Alyssa Reed, Gabrielle Ulloa, and Tatiana Wilshie.
Thank you. These appointments are by ward. Therefore, I will call on Councilmember Arias to share his nomination, and then Councilmember Smith on behalf of Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. What an incredible opportunity. If I could ask Mr. Noe Garcia to please stand so that he could be recognized. Tonight, I would like to make a motion or a nomination rather, that we nominate Mr. Noe Garcia to the Public Safety Vital Services Committee. Noe is a just a stand-up citizen. Was raised in Bakersfield, grew up just along 8th Street, still continues to live there along with his beautiful family. Graduated from South High School, was also a Ford Dream Builder, went on to graduate from UCLA, and also happens to be a Gates Millennium Scholar. And so super proud of him. He came right back after college, has proudly served on the Keep Bakersfield Beautiful Committee. He's worked for the Dolores Huerta Foundation and currently serves representing our in-house, in-home supportive service workers through the United Domestic Workers. And so he's actually here joined by his beautiful family. Would love to recognize his mother, Carmela, his father, Armando, his 3 sisters, Carmen, Maritza, and Rose, and their beautiful nieces his beautiful nieces and nephew, along with his beautiful girlfriend. So with that, just want to say congratulations and looking forward to seeing you do the hard work on the Measure-In Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of Councilmember Gonzalez, I would like to nominate Elisa Reed for the PSVS Committee.
All right, thank you. And then the motion for both?
I will make the motion for both.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with council members Kaur, Gonzalez, and Weir absent.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your willingness to serve, and we welcome you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Reports item 4A, Public Safety and Vital Services PSVS budget requests for fiscal year 2026 to 27.
Mr. Clegg.
Mayor and Council, pleased this afternoon to give you a preview of new items that will be recommended as part of the PSVS budget. For clarity, thank you. For clarity, there's no vote tonight on these items. The vote on these items will be in June. So this is a very early look at items that are going to be recommended to the Public Safety Vital Services Oversight Committee in the next couple of weeks. They're going to be having meetings to look at these items. This is consistent. Several of these slides that you'll see are consistent with information that was shared with your council and publicly at our preliminary budget workshop a few weeks ago. But there are a few specific CIP projects that we're going to be recommending be allocated through the Public Safety Vital Services tax. And so this is just an early preview of that information. We'll cover some of this information later, but there will be several other workshops and touch points on the same content between now and when you vote on the budget in June. With that context, again, we're going to give a quick overview of budget projections and expenditure, revenue and expenditure projections. Again, you've seen this already, but for the viewing public and to put this into context for the items that we'll go over tonight, as well as just a brief description, even less detail in our budget workshop. We'll just talk about how we're addressing budget reductions and then just look at the process itself and then the requests. So we know that we continue to have some uncertainty about some of the economic conditions. Our revenues have continued to grow at a pace lower than our expenditures, unfortunately, and we continue to see growth in expenditures in our insurance, our equipment, our pensions, and in our personnel costs. So we've pursued budget reductions that have been both personnel as well as other operating contributions. What's one point that's interesting about Public Safety Vital Services tax? You'll remember last year we had some significant filing errors that we had to make up for. We continue to see some of those filing errors. The impacts are less, but we do continue to see some of those errors occur that are more to the tune of some adjustments to the hundreds of thousands of dollars. But we're not seeing the same hit that was better than $4 million in total over a couple of years that we had to adjust for. Again, this is the same graph that you saw at your last workshop, but again, to put into context this topic and to demonstrate that we're still at about $100 million a year in tax revenues. We had that bump down last year because we had to make those adjustments, but with a modest 2%, a little higher, 2 to a little higher than 2% growth in revenues projected, we'll be back up at that very close to $100 million in tax revenue. This is also the same graph that you saw that just demonstrates where we're seeing some of the ups and downs in revenue growth by industry for our public safety vital services tax. Fortunately, there's a couple of categories that have seen some growth, others fairly stagnant, while a few have been a little bit lower. But overall, this next year, again, it's a little more than a 2% estimated growth in revenues. For expenditures, even though you will have noted there that we had $9 million in revenues, we have one-time savings in public safety vital services tax that will mean we have $117 million to work with in this coming year. Personnel expenditures will be at $62 million. The baseline positions that remain in the budget, that is a 6% increase. But it's been offset by notable eliminations or reductions in personnel costs. Last year, we were right up against the council policy that states that our goal is to not spend more than 60% of public safety vital services tax on personnel. Last year, it was right up against that 60%. You'll note now that that's the 54% of the total budget is now being spent on personnel because of our reductions, which is an important part of our restructuring, and I think it's a sign of that restructuring that we're making some of the adjustments that we need to make and have those funds available for our other one-time needs. And the reality is that we still anticipate that we will be making a transfer to the general fund. You'll note that the last two bullets have an estimated transfer. We have not finalized every detail of the general fund budget. We're very close. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll have that pinned down. I actually believe that number is going to be lower than that, but as our baseline assumption, we wanted to be clear that we do expect there still to be some transfer to the general fund, but we expect that it will be noticeably less, but there'll still be a large number there that will be a transfer. And this is just a little bit more on our budget reductions. As a reminder, we looked actually at a 5-year history of lows and highs in expenditures across each line item and each subcategory of departmental budgets. And in areas where we were overspending every year, we had some conversations. Why is that? Is that our real true costs? Do we need to make some adjustments there? In other areas where we were underspending regularly, we've adjusted those budgets down to reflect the actuals and also achieve those savings. We've also been looking at those programs that are producing better outcomes, and in our reductions, we've been able to identify where we can afford some of those service level impacts to the programs that either are not as high of a priority or are not producing the best outcomes. And so we've made some of those reductions, as well as the position eliminations that we covered at our last workshop. We're anticipating 70 position eliminations across general fund and public safety vital services tax. I should have had that number top of mind of what's the proportionate number of public safety vital services tax versus the rest of the general fund. But in total for the PSVS, it is an 8% reduction in those discretionary expenses. And as reflected in the lower percentage of personnel costs on the previous slide. So still a few steps forward. The next 2 weeks, we'll be meeting with the Oversight Committee. Then in April, we have our budget town hall meetings for the community to just learn more about how the budget works and that budget process. In May, we have 2 half-day city council budget workshops. We'll go in more detail of every department's budget, including the enterprise funds. And then your city council deliberation between May and June when the budget adoption will occur. Now we just go to 2 short slides of what we're recommending to the committee in the next 2 weeks. We're not recommending any new ongoing allocations. Again, as we're restructuring, it's not wise to add new ongoing allocations. We're only proposing using the one-time funds that are available for capital projects. We estimate about $7.5 million available for capital projects. And we're approaching this the same as we did last year, where there are some projects that we view as either necessary or important deferred maintenance or recommended as staff. And then another list of projects where we won't have the funding to fund all of those projects, but council will have to make some decisions, somewhat like a menu of options of which of those projects to fund. Of course, council can determine some of the recommended projects to maybe be pushed over to the optional list and move some of the optionals up into the recommended list, and we can still make some projects contingent. I do recommend that when we get to the final budget adoption in June, we have some of our capital projects remain contingent as we have in prior years in the event that revenues don't come in as anticipated, and we can forego those projects just for that 1 year as we move forward. So to speak to each of these line items really quickly, we have been able to move forward with our very large radio replacement project. We're actually making good progress there. We're actually remediating tower sites. We've deployed the radios to the majority of our vehicles. We're working closely with the county still. As we worked on that, we recognized that there's a generator challenge at the PD headquarters location, that we need a new generator there for continuity of governance. That generator is very old, and so we're recommending that that's an important expenditure from this source. For our park amenities and renovation improvements, or our PARI account, that's the account that we've used over the last couple of years to address some of our smaller and medium park needs. We actually get a pretty big bang for our buck on these projects. When we implemented the Park Rangers program and we were trying to create more security at our parks, we had large parking lots. When we were able to, for example, go put up gates to close those parking lots each evening, that came out of the PARI accounts. When we've had a smaller project where perhaps a canopy over a playground was damaged, or a playground that got replaced but didn't get a canopy when it got replaced, to be able to put up a shade canopy, or to be able to repair some sports courts that had issues that came up sometime during the year. These are smaller projects that don't fit within a larger CIP. This account has allowed us to really catch up on deferred maintenance in our parks. Prior years, it had been at $1 million. Last year, we reduced it to $500,000 and recommending the same this year. For our MLK Park, the total park project, including a new community center, remains a much larger project. But we are very close to being able to move forward with the first phase, which would be 1/2 of the park footprint, which would be all park and not any changes to the community center yet. We received an $11.9 million grant to do that project. That is half of the full cost. So it's about a $23 million cost to do that full 50% of the park footprint. We have about $4 million in match funds that can match against that grant, where we need $7 million to finish that out. I'm recommending a $3 million grant match. We've applied for several other grants we expect to hear back on in this coming year, and this would be enough grant funds to match against those grants. And if we are successful in those grants with this additional funding, it would be enough to complete that first phase. This is a large number, I acknowledge, but we do not want to lose the $11.9 million grant, and we have about a 2-year window to go to construction and be able to finish that project. And so I believe it's a high priority to maximize those grant resources we've already received and go to construction on this first half of that park project. These last two pieces are related to the fire department that are necessary replacements. Our turnouts are, that's the gear that our firefighters wear. There are some new standards that the state has set in how we need to meet higher standards in that turnout gear. And we don't have to make those replacements all at once, but we do expect in this next 2 years to have significant turnout replacements. They're much greater replacement rate than the typical life cycle of those turnouts. And so we're recommending the funding to take care of that issue. And then as we've continued to catch up and now keep up with our deferred maintenance on our fire stations and police facilities, this is the next phase of that. The fire stations, several fire stations had roof repairs and some restroom repairs over this last year. This year, we just have these 3 repairs to, or replacements of HVAC for those 3 stations. This next list, again, you'll note that there's $6.3 million in potential projects there. There's really about $3 to $3.5 million of available funds, depending on how council prioritizes the list from the prior slide. But these are projects that have been in the works and are recommended. We've continued to place new street lights throughout the city. We've made $1 million allocation over the last 5 years for that, and we continue to spend that down. We have many locations that have much improved lighting, but we still have significant gaps in several areas of the city for street lighting. And we have a list of requests and identified locations to put that street lighting in. We actually probably have as much as $2 million worth of work to do in that area, but in comparison with the other projects, we would recommend as one option for council to consider another allocation of $1 million for continuing our street light improvements. Beach Park Bridge, we set aside enough funding to do the environmental work on that project. This would be to go forward with the design work and get it to a point where it's ready to go and seek grants for its actual construction. Traffic calming improvements. In prior years, we've actually allocated either $1 million or $500,000 for ongoing traffic calming improvements. This last year, we primarily did that around schools. And it's actually paid very, very good dividends in improving traffic safety around schools. We have enough school work that we think even this $500,000 probably wouldn't address all school opportunities that we're trying to partner on with school districts. And actually, they've shown some willingness to put some skin in the game, and we're actually able to stretch our dollars farther. But this would be another good allocation to continue to make progress on that. But I would anticipate another couple years of funding to continue to get at as many calming and safety improvements around schools. Centennial Park and Westwold Park have both been prior contingent projects that we held off on, and so it's worth noting that they've been paused now, not 1 fiscal year but 2 fiscal years, both of these projects, and they're in the replacement cycle for park and other playground equipment to be those that are most aged, and so we've put those back there for consideration for council. And then we've begun putting security cameras in multiple of our parks, but with our 62 different parks, it's going to take some time to deploy security cameras in all parks, and this would just be the next phase of that work. When we talk about park access improvements, we have several of our parks who have some challenging parking lot situations or sidewalk sort of entryways into parks, and some of that is ADA access, but a lot of that is just general access into those parks. We've been making those improvements again over the last 2 or 3 years, but we've got another phase of access improvements to sidewalks and parking lots in parks that need that work across a number of different parks, and we're actually able to get some good economies of scale by packaging up several of those projects together instead of just doing them each as one-offs. And then the Seaman park tennis court renovations well past its useful life and have some challenges there. So that's one additional recommendation on parks. And then the last one is, of course, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. In prior years, we'd made very large allocations as budgets have been a little bit tighter, but also as we're seeing some revenue streams in other categories come in. We've put a lot of dollars into the Community Land Trust, as well as we've now have close to 1,000 units in the pipeline through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. We've slowed down a little bit the larger allocations to that trust fund, but we still see value in making an annual allocation that helps us to do some of our priority projects or special projects that may be hard with certain other funding sources. So happy to answer questions on any one of these items. The last thing I would note is that you'll probably not see some projects that have come up in recent council conversations about priority capital projects. We still have the general fund capital improvement program that complements the Public Safety Vital Services capital improvement program that typically comes from general fund and transient occupancy tax resources. Last year, as a comparison, we did about $5 million from TOT for CIPs and about $7 million for PSVS. This year is going to be about the same. The numbers are going to be very comparable. So a couple of items that we acknowledge is probably fitting better into the TOT bucket that were council priorities include the tree canopy. We anticipate making a recommendation for additional trees in the tree canopy in that CIP program. We also put an optional item in there for spay-neuter, additional spay-neuter. We have some spay-neuter dollars in the budget, but last year that was a topic that the council had brought up as a topic of interest. Also, we have put a placeholder in there if council wants to move forward with the sewer rate assistance fund as one possibility there. Of course, it does have to come from general fund dollars, but just based on council inquiries and requests to look into that, we've got a placeholder there in the general fund side. And so if you don't see a specific project here, it is very likely that it will be in the general fund. Another one I failed to mention was block walls. We know we need to keep working on our block walls, and so we've got an allocation recommended for block walls in our general fund budget. And again, we're not looking to decide on all these things tonight. We just wanted you to have this preview at the same time that our oversight committee is getting this preview, and then by April 16th they'll be making recommendations about how these are fit within the 13 priorities identified for spending on this tax measure. With that, I will pause and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Madam City Clerk, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this?
Mayor Go, no speaker cards have been received for this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor. For the city manager, that 8% reduction in the PSVS personnel expenses, can we expect that to also continue into the general fund expenses? Is that percentage still about the same?
It is. Thank you, Councilmember. Yes, we're seeing, our target this year was about a 5%, but we're seeing, because we've been a little more aggressive, both in general savings as well as departments recognizing that it's better to make corrections with some of the frozen positions. It's about 8% on both sides, yes.
Okay, and then my last question is the list of items that you have on page 5 of this PowerPoint presentation, which is the PSVS fund capital outlay project plus the additional. So what will PSVS committee be asked to do?
Thank you, Councilmember. They will be asked to consider each of these items and make a determination of whether or not those items are consistent with one of the 13 funding categories that were identified by resolution as being eligible for the use of those funds.
And so then he'll come back to council to go through these and the optional ones to decide what, we can have a discussion about that at another time, what you're saying.
Absolutely, Councilmember, and thank you for that clarification, because respectfully, we're not asking the committee to determine which projects of optional to say those are the ones that should be. The committee does have a role in their legislation, the resolution that establishes the committee, that they can make suggestions or recommendations to the council, but we don't really tee it up in a way to ask them, would you pick some of these projects and not others? Their primary role is to determine if it's eligible or consistent with the funding categories, and then it's really the role of the city council to determine which projects to fund and which projects to pick. So we'll actually ask them to look at all of these, knowing that not all of them will be chosen.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. I have no further questions, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Coleman. Councilmember Arias.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Christian, for this update. One quick point of clarification on the expenditure summary. I saw that the total budget was 117 million and noted that there was a one-time operating of 12 million, close to 13 million. Is that fund balance from year prior that we are adding to this new budget, or what exactly is that number?
Yeah, thank you, Council Member. What that represents is we have, and you'll probably recall when we established our policy of what was ongoing versus one-time versus personnel, we have some expenditures that we consider ongoing, even though they're not personnel related. And so, for example, the Brundage Lane Navigation Center, that's about an $8 million a year spend. That's not in that number, by the way, but it's in the other ongoing expenditures category. That's that number. But we have some other expenses that we consider them like contributions that have been repeat from prior years, that they really are one time, but they're more operating in nature. For example, we've made allocations to the urban property purchase line item, and that's probably not the best example because that's been significantly reduced in recent years, but that's the one that's coming to top of mind. We were putting aside about $1.2 million a year into the budget for that, but it was one of those types of categories that council could readily say, you know what, we're just not going to, if budget gets tight, we're going to pull that back. We're not going to fund that going forward. Another example is our economic development strategic plan. We put about $1.5 million into the economic development strategic plan every year, but we don't view that as an ongoing commitment that you have to keep. That's something that council can say, you know what, this year we think we're going to dial that back a little bit. And so there are several expenditure line items, in that bucket that are fairly flexible, and we've actually significantly reduced some of those in recent years because they are more flexible than the personnel spend. But we'll go through each of these categories when we do the department budgets in the May workshops to be clear about where those dollars sit. But big portions actually do sit in community development and economic development. And then there are some of those portions that actually do sit, for example, in the police department as well.
Got it. So these are one-time operational expenses that have occurred in the past that have been either cut and or reduced that have amounted to this number.
I will say yes, but this is not that doesn't represent a savings. That actually represents dollars that we would recommend still staying in the budget, but we do consider them still, they're operating, but they're not ongoing locked-in operating, but we are recommending that we do still keep those in the budget, actually.
Got it. And then secondly, another clarifying question. So you showed in a previous slide that we were projecting in 2026 to 2027 close to 100 million, but the total budget for PSVS is 117. Can you clarify?
Yes.
How that happens?
Yeah, absolutely, Councilmember. Thank you for that question. So I just went back to this slide really quickly to confirm you're correct. It's just less than $100 million projected in revenues. How we then come up with on this next slide where there's 117, that is fund balance from prior year and close and other one-time savings from capital projects that don't get completed and or are completed and have some leftovers. We have one-time monies. There's about $18 million in one-time monies that are available for use from PSVS. So that does allow us to do some of those capital projects as an example. Even though the revenues are at $100 million, we've got additional one-time monies to spend on capital projects.
Got it. Thank you so much for that clarification. And then as it relates to the capital outlay projects, appreciate this list. I would agree with everything that's been recommended. Would love to get to some of the additional projects that I know that we've pushed off, but just so I understand your position and recommendation for those additional options, are you recommending that those be considered to be moved into the recommended bucket, or are these contingent projects that we should wait until we see what PSVS brings in?
That's a good question again, Councilmember. For clarity, I would also share that we received more potential project ideas from departments than are on this list. And so this was a narrowed list to say, we can't do all these projects, but I would say these are projects that I deem as worthy of council consideration to include in the budget, but you're not going to be able to pick all of them. You're going to be able to pick about $3 to $4 million worth of these projects, but it's giving council some discretion in prioritizing and picking which projects. We kicked out some projects that I said, and the whole budget team said, those just aren't the highest priority. We can wait another year or two on some of those improvements, or that just doesn't rank as high as some of these other needs. But these are all fairly worthy, but it's down to the policy decision of council of which of these rank amongst the highest within this list. Again, I would note, I commented earlier, toggling back to this prior slide of recommended, this is a staff recommendation. Council could say, you know what, we still think something on that optional list is more important than something on the recommended list. Policy call of the council as well. But really between the two lists, you're going to have about $7.5 million to pick from these projects on both lists, but not everything will make it. And we know that, but that's a council decision.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Arias. I don't see any other requests to speak.
I would move to receive and file.
Thank you. You have a motion. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with council members Kaur, Gonzalez, and Weir absent.
Thank you. We don't have any other items on our business, and so we stand adjourned at 4:13.